What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Too Deep Coverage Pod. Today, we're going to be going over the NFC North and going over the seasons that those four teams had. The Bears, with their underwhelming season and their coaching changes during it. The Packers, struggling with Jordan Love this year and his injuries that came. Plus, the Vikings QB drama as that sped up and kind of fizzled out during the offseason this year. And, of course, if the Lions can stay on top of the NFC. Let's get into it. But first, I have to talk to you about my friends and partners at W Energy. Since 2021, they've been making the safest, cleanest, and best crash-free energy drink on the market. This American-made, clean formula energy drink is made to give you a long burst of energy and concentration with no crash or slump afterwards. All flavors are unique and custom made by W, so you'll never taste our flavors anywhere else. With zero sugar, no fillers or artificial colors or dyes, no secret or hidden ingredients, and of course being gluten-free, W is the best drink to hit the market in years. With every drink averaging out to be just $1 each, your pocket and body will thank you for making the switch to W Energy. Be sure to use the link in the description to get your starter sampler pack today with an extra 10% off using my code TWIZZLER. It's like the candy, but with a two Whizzler. Add some energy and focus it back into your life with W Energy. All right, guys, we got the headphones on today. Feel like my hair looks better with them on than off, but let's get into this, okay? Because we have some stuff to go over. Okay, let's start with the Bears. They were at the bottom of the division, which sucks. You know, they were my team. What are you going to do? Okay. I felt like the Bears had a pretty good season, considering that the rest of the division was so good. 5-12. Pretty underwhelming, at least in that aspect. But I think there's a couple of reasons why. Okay, let's start with the coaching woes. Okay. First, they fired Shane Waldron, offensive coordinator from Seattle the year before. Nobody said he was good, and then he got fired halfway through the year. Wonder why that happened. But at least there was a little more offensive identity before that. You know, I agree that, you know, it wasn't a very good system, but at the same time, at least there was more than just like, you know, the default run, pass, you know. At least there was a little something, okay? But then firing Eberflus halfway through the year really hurt after Thanksgiving because the defense actually got pretty bad. You know, that's the thing about Chicago and Eberflus. That's why the Cowboys hired him as the DC, is because he's pretty good at defense. And that's why the Bears had a top 10 defense. I'm pretty sure it was all 3 years he was there. He had a top 10. So, getting rid of those guys, even though they weren't the right fit, even though obviously it was needed to happen. I think that it hurt the team overall. And I think when you look at Caleb Williams and what he needed in his first year, kind of transitioning over from this run-around backyard style football to very systematic. I mean, there's maybe 4, 5, 6 plays that'll change a game where you start running around going crazy like Lamar or Pat Mahomes. But at the end of the day, if you're going crazy, especially with no offensive identity and no head coach leading anything, you're going to have a bad time. You know, I don't think that during the year, Caleb wasn't even really able to show himself as a prospect, what his potential would be. I think that if you really go back and look and see what Caleb did in the games, in the second half of games, where he was actually able to play with less pressure, maybe a little more freedom, play calling. Just depends, you know, what happened in the second half of games to make him get so much better, right? It's like somebody I watch all the time. You know, he doesn't necessarily think Caleb Williams is bad, but at the same time, Caleb Williams isn't really any good either. He didn't show any promise, any potential. He didn't show anything, right? But I think that with the big draft that was last year, everybody pretty much consensus says that like all 6 quarterbacks out of the 24 draft are better than the top 3 quarterbacks in the 25 draft. And then you go back to the 23 draft with Anthony Richardson and C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. I'm sorry, but Caleb Williams had a better first season than Bryce Young did. And I would say that his team is just as bad, maybe even worse. So I really cannot speak on like, okay, is Caleb Williams just a bad quarterback then? Because he's already done better than other quarterbacks that are drafted in the same spot, the year before on a very similar team. And no offense, but Bryce Young didn't lose his coaches in the middle of the year, like we were just talking about. Okay, he had consistency. He had a good roster. Well, not a good roster. He had a full roster. I would say that, now that they've added a lot of people onto the Bears, specifically the O-line, probably getting some running backs into maybe in the draft too. That's something they've been talking about. What are you going to do if he's bad again? They have the line reformed. They got Tooney, which everybody says is like, hey, this is the biggest upgrade the Bears have had ever. To literally get basically a 4-time Super Bowl champion lineman to play with the two best dynasties ever, the Patriots and the Chiefs, to come and play for your team and be a leader, to help revitalize them and like kind of sit there with a good quarterback like he's had on those other two teams. Like, that's what you need to get these guys from these other teams to say, hey, look, like, we are not a successful organization. We don't know how to win games. We don't know what to do. We haven't been in the playoffs in years. What do we need to do? Well, let's get people that are from good teams. And I think that's what they did with coaching as well. They got rid of a lot of coaches, but then they go and get Ben Johnson from the Lions, who definitely had the best offensive scheme for the last probably 2 years, at least 2 years, especially in the NFC North. If we're getting outside of that, and the NFC, probably. I mean, they should have been to the Super Bowl when they lost to the 49ers. They blew that game. They lost this year. So, I mean, necessarily, I don't think that Ben Johnson was the problem. Maybe, yeah, he called a couple weird little trick plays or iffy plays or whatever, but I think that's what got them to be in the place they are, and that's what the Bears need. They need a little something to get them to that next spot, to get them to like where success starts. And I think Ben Johnson has that. Okay? I think that with their O-line and their new coaches, getting a new defensive coordinator, getting a new offensive coordinator, getting a new defensive, everything. Okay? It's really what was needed for the Bears for a long time. And I think, sadly with the passing of Virginia McCaskey, the owner, the now late owner of the Bears, I think the team is actually able to like make some more decisions for themselves. I think that the ownership, especially being 100 years old, maybe had a little tighter grip on the type of things that need to happen. But new ownership people, even if it's the same group, new people at the top of the helm, new coaches, new players on the O-line. Everything seems to be getting better for the Bears. The only thing I can think of maybe being a little worse is maybe the receiving core. Maybe the running back room. If those two positions can stay healthy and hot, if Odunze can become a 2, I don't see a world where the Bears don't go 10-7. That's my honest prediction. We're going to do predictions for every team today. But I see them going 10-7. Last year they went 5-12 and they lost 6 one-possession games. You start with the Hail Mary, and then you go back to 5 of their division games. 5 of their 6 division games. Green Bay was a blocked field goal. The Lions was a last-minute drive. Vikings was a last-minute drive. And then you beat the Packers. That could have been another loss, but you beat the Packers at the very end. It's just one of those things where this year they could have been 10-7 just to begin with. But with everything that we talked about earlier, I think that's really, really what happened. But let's move on to the Packers. This is probably, I want to say, my least favorite team in the NFL. Not only because of the division rivalry, but I think that they're just the most bland, boring, ugly. Pretty much everything about the Packers is something I don't like. Okay, but let's get into it from an objective basing. What does everybody else think? Now, this is what I've heard. This is also what I've noticed, is that everybody talked about Jordan Love after he beat up on the Cowboys, killed him. Cut. Killed the Cowboys. Jordan Love, he's the new Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers. He's the new next best Green Bay quarterback. They've had Green Bay quarterback success for 30 years now. They're going to have another quarterback for another 10 or 15 years. Look, Jordan Love is good. Obviously, when he throws a good ball, he throws a good ball. He can win playoff games. He's done that. But I think another big thing to ask is, why is Malik Willis just as good, if not better? Why is this guy coming in up off the street, essentially padding up at the beginning of the season, week 2, and leading them to win games? Like, why? To me, with Matt LaFleur on the sideline, there are 5 receivers that they have, 5 young star receivers. Is it the quarterback? Or is it the system? Is it the receivers? Is it the small defensive talent they have? What is it that's getting them to win these games? Because I don't know if you guys know this, but the Packers went 1-5 in division last year, which is actually the same as the Bears. The only team that the Packers beat in division was the Bears. And it was only one time. So I think if you look at the Packers, you might actually be surprised, like, they lost all their division games and they beat everybody else. 2 or 3 of those games was a backup quarterback. So if you think about it, Jordan Love only won 8 games this year. Jordan Love only won 8 games. So no offense to the Packers offense to Packers fans. Coming from a Bears fan, and there's a few Packers fans I don't like specifically. But I think that they're going to be worse. I think that Jordan Love is honestly an underwhelming quarterback. I think I see a lot of that, like, just throw it up, kind of mentality. There isn't like a lot of those Tom Brady situations where, like, he's just scanning the field forever. And the millisecond somebody gets open, he throws the best pass you've ever seen. And how does he do that? Jordan Love is like a back foot, launch it in the air, hope it gets there, maybe a dink and dunk. But this guy is not like a diabolical middle of the field, cut it up on you like you're done for quarterback. The guy's loved because he's able to do the things that people like out of these type of quarterbacks. He's maybe a little mobile, but he's not too mobile, right? He's still in the pocket. And I think Jordan Love is like a good combination of a lot of fundamentals that people want quarterbacks to have. But I think his combination specifically isn't really that good. He looks sloppy, uncomposed. He doesn't look like he has very many fundamentals, not including the injuries that he's now kind of getting a little rap for. I mean, missing multiple games at the beginning of a season last year. I mean, the whole offseason you didn't heal, and then at the very beginning of the season you got hurt. So it's like at the beginning of the year, are you going to get hurt every year because you weren't playing all winter? Or I just don't understand what's going to happen with Jordan Love, because it seems like if Jordan Love was his next best thing, he would have been good already. Think about Mahomes. Think about Brady. Think about Rodgers. Think about, okay? I think that him beating the Cowboys really, really, really made people have a different expectation of Jordan Love. And I think that Jordan Love is really going to need some help. But from who? I mean, the whole point of the Packers for a long time was that they're the Green Bay Packers. You got to come into our house. You got to come to Lambeau. And you got to face us. I'm sorry, but who's us? I mean, growing up, even the last, 10 or 15 years, there hasn't been very many super popular or game-changing players on the Packers other than maybe Clay Matthews on the defensive side, Aaron Rodgers on the offensive side, Devontae Adams. But to be honest with you guys, I think that one of the problems that the Packers have is that they are a diminishing star power type of team. They have like 5 great receivers, like I was saying earlier. And Romeo Doubs is like the one. Okay, he's the one that everybody knows and likes, and he catches the biggest balls, is what it seems like. He gets the biggest catches. The guy can't stay on the field if he bonks his head. I mean, he got a guardian cap concussion in the end zone. He was laying there 5 minutes. They had to go to commercial break because he had a concussion with the guardian cap on. And he didn't get slammed. Like, he was diving, and he caught it, and he hit his head on the ground. So, okay, that's your best receiver. He's already out. You have your other guy, Jordy Nelson, right? Or what is that guy's name? Whatever names. Okay, I'm not going to go with names. All these receiver names get stuck up in my head. We got a lot to go over today. We're not going to worry about it right now. But he got hurt at the end of the year. One of your best veteran presences got hurt bad. So, what are the Packers? Who are the Packers? I think, LaFleur says and shows we're an old school team. We're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, and then we're going to use our quarterback who's just good enough to try and win 11 games every year. And if we can win 11 games, we can go to the playoffs, and we can win games, that's good. But I don't think Jordan Love is going to be the one to win them a Super Bowl. Now, I'd love to eat my words because being wrong is good. Being wrong is good. I'd rather be wrong than right. But I just don't think that's him. I don't know what the Packers are supposed to be either, other than a running team. Because where's their defensive power at? Where's their defensive line presence that's sacking everybody? They went 1-5 in the division. They have Jared Goff. They had Sam Darnold and Caleb Williams. Now, no offense to anybody, but that seems like that's kind of a pretty weak quarterback class there to be running after. And the Packers still really aren't shit in division. And then you got to move and play against the rest of the NFL. Let's say you play Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, and let's say you play Sam Darnold again in Seattle, and you play Matt Stafford, and you play Kyle Murray. Yeah, it got real quiet. Because those guys will just walk all over you all day long. I honestly think the Packers are going to go 8-9 this year. 8-9. Not because I don't like them. Now, personally, I don't like them. But I think last year they shouldn't have gone 11-6. Especially when you're in division and you lose 5 division games. So they essentially went undefeated against the rest of the NFL. But their own division, they lose. No travel, similar weather. 2 of the stadiums are in domes. Essentially home games because fans will travel. Huh. Yeah, I think they're going to go 8-9 this year, guys. I just don't think the Packers are going to be very good. All right, let's move on. Second place in the North this year, the Vikings. Now, obviously, the biggest talking point about the Vikings for the last year, even since they started the season, when J.J. McCarthy got hurt, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is now a Seattle Seahawk. He's the number one. He's starting. He's the man over there. Okay? Now, personally, what I think is that Darnold should have stayed in Minnesota, and I think that's what he wanted. I think it was reported pretty heavily that he wanted to get a new deal done. He wanted to stay there, obviously, because of the coaching and the season they just had, but I think the Vikings actually kind of took a misstep on this one. Because I think the Vikings actually had probably one of the best quarterback situations in the entire league. And they gave it away to kind of prove a point. At least that's my opinion, to prove a point. So, one of the last few podcasts I made, the title was Tag the Freak. Okay? And that was me talking about giving Sam Darnold the franchise tag. This guy, his whole career was horrible. And I don't want to say that lightly, but he was horrible. Goes to San Francisco, basically learns enough to become good enough to become a number 2. And people want him. Okay? Weirdly, Minnesota picks him up, thinking, okay, we're getting a rookie. If he doesn't do well, we'll just throw this guy in. right? If we're losing games, if this guy's going to lose games too, that's fine. Or if we're going to start him and he's losing games, we might as well throw our rookie in because if he's going to lose games too, we might as well, right? Kind of gave themselves an out. If our first guy isn't good and he's losing, we'll pin on our second guy. And if he's not good and he's losing, whatever, right? It's his first year. He's never been good anyway. They kind of had a fallback. But now, the Vikings have no fallback. The Vikings are going all in on J.J. McCarthy, who had no experience last year. Yeah, he looked good in the preseason. Man, I could go out there with my helmet on, and I'd look good in the preseason. No offense. I know everybody's NFL caliber. I know everybody's good. But I also know for a fact, nobody is playing hard in that preseason game. Nobody. Especially against J.J. McCarthy. Nobody's playing hard against him. Okay, so when he gets hurt, and Darnold comes in and he takes them to be 14-3, I think that the Vikings knew they were in a situation. So let me give you what I would have done, and then we'll move on, and we'll start talking about some of the problems that they might have coming up. Okay, so like I said, I would have franchise tagged Sam Darnold. One more year. Yes, I know it's a lot of money, more money than Seattle gave him. But the thing is, we're not here for money. At least in my opinion, as an NFL team, you are an infinitely capital type business. You will always get money. You get money from the other teams. Even if your team's dog ass for years, you're getting the same amount of money as them from the TV deals and everything. So money shouldn't be a problem. I would keep Darnold. And I would say, Darnold, you're going to start until we have our bye week in week 5 or week 7 or week 9. But for the first half of the season, you're going to start. If you lose 2 games in a row, we're starting McCarthy. But why? McCarthy's finally healthy. He's able to play. You know, it's your draft pick, your first-round draft pick. Yada, yada. I've heard so many of those claims, right? Of course you want McCarthy to play. But the thing is, you also don't want McCarthy to blow up in your face either. So at least if you have Darnold play for the first 8 games and then he goes off into the bye week on a high horse and he never has to play again for your team, at least then you can put in McCarthy and have a backup plan. Okay, so Sam Darnold just went 6-2 again in the first half. Here's our bye week. We're coming back to have the second half of the season, and McCarthy, kind of like Russell Wilson did last year, starts losing us a bunch of games in a row. Well, the Steelers, to prove a point, never put Justin Fields back into the game. To prove a point that we don't trust him. We don't think he's good enough. We don't think he can do this. We don't think he can do that. Well, the Vikings are doing that in the offseason. We don't think Darnold is actually good. We think we're the reason he did good. We don't think Darnold can win 14 games again. We don't think Darnold can do this or do that. But there's one thing that I do know for sure. He's actually played in the NFL regular season. And don't get me wrong, as bad as they looked, he's played in a playoff game as well. So, I just hope that Vikings fans are ready for J.J. McCarthy and the experiment they're going to have for probably the next 2 years until he's out of the league and they're looking again. I know that sounds pretty harsh to say, but just go back and look at what Michigan did. Run heavy. Run heavy. Never really passed the ball. He won a game with 8 completed passes. I remember hearing that stat. Blew me away. And if you throw 8 passes in a game in the NFL, you're on your first drive of the game. You're not winning a game like that. So I think it'll be a lot for J.J. McCarthy to become an instant 14-win quarterback because that's what he's going to be compared against. Let's say the team this year went 7-10 and Darnold threw it away and he's no good and whatever. I would rather start McCarthy after that kind of season than to bring him in after a 14-3 season where you went to the playoffs, almost had the number 1 seed, and then say, no, we think this guy's better. No, we think this guy's going to do more. No, I think we got it. I think we got it here. I wonder what Justin Jefferson's going to say about that in a year or two, when he's been in the league for 6 years and he's never even sniffed the Super Bowl. I wonder what the best wide receiver in the NFL is going to say when he's catching every ball thrown at him. Missing games with injury, still coming back and being a top receiver. Is he going to be okay with losing forever? If it is all about money, then I guess he's fine, right? Because he'll be one of the highest, if not the highest paid, alongside with Jamar Chase, his old teammate, for the rest of his career. He's great talent. But I don't think that very many kids grow up thinking, man, I just want to go into the NFL so I can be a millionaire and then I'll be good. I just won't play. I don't really like football, but I'll do it every day from the age of 8 until I'm 30 just to make money. I don't know about that. It seems like to me, even once you start to get to a certain point where you don't like something, you're still good enough to excel, and that alone motivates you. So I just don't think that Justin Jefferson is going to be okay. I think it will matter who his quarterback is, because the thing is, no matter how many balls you can catch, no matter how many different ways you can catch them, what if it's 5 feet behind you? What if it's 3 feet above your hands? What if it's literally out of reach? And now you're looking at your quarterback like, damn, okay, it does matter. This guy just can't throw the ball to me. This guy can't read coverages. I'm hitting cuts at the right time, and he's throwing it late. Okay, so that's what you have to worry about when it comes to your quarterback. It's not about your ability. Justin Jefferson, we all know, is a great player. But what's going to happen when his quarterback's ability doesn't reach his receiver ability? Okay, and what about the other top receiver, Jordan Addison? He's going to matter too. I mean, you just saw it with the Bengals. You need more than one receiver on the field. And I think even with you can use like bad teams. Now, I don't want to say bad teams, because the teams I'm going to use are really good teams. But teams with the bad receiving corps. Think about the current Chiefs and then like the Patriots dynasties. Julian Edelman, Aaron Hernandez, Gronkowski. Like, I'm sorry, but a lot of these guys were not like star number 1 pick, first round pick guys. What about Mahomes? He has Juju Smith-Schuster again. He had, Kareem Hunt off the street. He has Xavier Worthy, who, yeah, he's good. He's a first round pick. But he was a rookie, small guy. He's like 5'10". His actual good players are getting hurt. But somehow they win, right? So the Bengals showed, like, hey, you can't just have a Jamar Chase. As good as that is, you got to have some other guys around to help. So I think it's going to come a point to the Vikings, like, okay, we need to keep our second receiver, but the quarterback isn't getting our first receiver the ball, and our first receiver is making so much money that we literally just have to get free agents or pickups or draft picks. And I just don't know if the Vikings will be able to sustain the success they've had the last few years, because as good as everybody says Kevin O'Connell is, I feel like your success is really earned in the playoffs. I know he hasn't been to a lot of playoff games. You think these guys are going to coach for the rest of their lives once they get there, but think about Dak. Everybody doubts him because of his playoff woes. Can't win a playoff game. Can't get to an NFC championship. He's no good. He's not a good quarterback. He's a top 6 quarterback at best. Top 12 quarterback. So, what does that make the Vikings? Does that make them like a top 12 team? A top 16 team because they can't win in the playoffs with the Sean McVay, pupil? I think they're going to go 7-10. Last year, I was unimpressed with the Vikings. I think the Vikings, every year, I'm unimpressed with them because I think again, I'd love to be wrong. But these are the guys I watch every year because this is my favorite division. It has my favorite team in it. I don't see the Vikings doing well. Not with J.J. McCarthy. I mean, I just don't see him being able to fit in the mold that Kevin O'Connell wants his quarterbacks to fill. I just don't see it. Now, if he proves me wrong, great. Great. But the thing is, he has to prove a lot of people wrong, not just me. He has to prove everybody wrong. The media, even his own team. I am good enough to do this. I'm just as good as him, and I'm better. Well, being better is winning 14 games and winning the NFC. Or winning 15 games and not winning the NFC. But I think it's going to be real hard for anybody, especially somebody of his stature. You know, national champion or not. No offense, but I think it's pretty obvious that everybody knows that Michigan team kind of just won because of their strength, not because of their style. And if there's one thing I know about the Vikings is they got a lot of style. There ain't a lot of strength on that team. It's a lot of style. So let's go to the Lions. There's going to be less to talk about here just because the Lions are a good team. They have the best roster potential. I know that they lost some coaches. Of course, like we talked about earlier in the Bears part, we got Ben Johnson. We literally got so lucky we got Ben Johnson. But then they also lost Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator. And I think that's probably one of the bigger losses because Aaron Glenn kept together probably the worst cohesive and least trained practice defensive unit in the NFL with the Lions last year. He killed it. So it's kind of one of those things where they lost their offensive mind, they lost their defensive mind. Yeah, there's people that are in that system that see how things are done, but there's only one person controlling that computer in that head. There's no other Ben Johnson in the league. There may be somebody that's better, or maybe a little worse, or just as good, but they're not going to do it the same. And I think that if the players can adapt the same way that these coaches can adapt, the same way Dan Campbell can adapt, there's not going to be a problem for the Lions. I really don't. I don't see it. I think their identity is there. I think the strength of their team is still there. They're having all of their players come back. So I just don't see a way to where they just crumble and fall apart like maybe the Packers or the Vikings. Okay, and I think the falling apart last year for the Bears was last year. I think they had their down year last year, and they're only going to build. You know, now that their defense is going to be healthy on the Lions, now that the offense is going to be just as good, in my opinion, and I think that there's a lot of weapons for people to utilize on the Lions that maybe weren't being. I know how crazy that sounds, but I think that the Lions actually have a really, really, really good chance to be just as good, to be just as dangerous, and to probably win the division. I know that sounds crazy, like, oh, every team in the NFC North is getting better. I just don't believe that. I think the only team that got better is the Bears. And the only reason I say that is because the coaching and the offensive line adding on to what they had the year before. But I don't think the Lions are going to get any better, especially losing their coaches. I don't think losing those two coaches are going to make you any better. And I don't think as good as your roster is that anybody can take a particular step up either to become even better. Jared Goff can't play better than Jared Goff can play. I mean, he had literally no interceptions until that one game, and he had 5, right? And even then, he wiped that away within the next game when he threw 5 touchdowns. You know, I don't think that Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to grow like 6 inches and become Megatron for the Lions. Like, he's a small slot guy. He's going to have to catch a lot of balls and get out of there. You know, I don't really see, like, Jameson Williams really changing much. I don't see a lot of the Lions' identity changing. I just don't. I think the Lions are going to be good this year. I think they're going to win the division again. Sadly, it hurts me to say, but it might be their last year to do it. I think this year they're going to win 13 games. And the reason I say that, I know it's like, oh, well, the schedule's going to be harder. Yeah, the schedule's going to be harder, but I think a lot of teams actually got worse this year in the NFL. There's a lot of movement, a lot of liquidation, a lot of clearing out. So I think that the Lions, they may be worse, and maybe let's rerun this entire season with different rosters and everything now. Maybe with the same schedule, they win 12 games, 11 games. But I think that their talent is just too high. I think even if they say, okay, guys, let's use everything we used last year. Let's just try and run it back. And if things change, we need to change it. Let's change it. They're not going to go straight downhill. They're not going to be a Viking situation where they're going 7-10. They're going to be 13-4. I think the Lions will do just fine. I think the Bears will be in the playoffs. But I think there's only going to be 2 playoff teams this year from the NFC North. Mainly because I think that the NFC West is going to have more. There's just no way it doesn't. Seahawks definitely going to get there this year because they had Geno last year. And I'm sorry, but Sam Darnold's better than Geno, at least based off last year. Then they have the Cardinals, too, which have been getting better for a long time. But if you want to talk about the Rams, I mean, this is Stafford's basically penultimate season. This is it. If he doesn't win, he's probably going to retire. And I think that's why he went with that 1-year deal, is because I don't think he even wants to play for very much longer. But, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens there. I just think the Lions are going to be a better team than people think. And I know this, like, oh, well, people think the Lions will still be good. Yeah, but there's like that air of doubt. Like, what are the Lions going to do after losing their coaches? They're just going to keep playing. I mean, it's not like the coaches leave and then it's like the second they walk out of the double door and their key badge stops working. It's like all the players start looking around and being like, I don't know how to play football now. No, like they're gonna go back and watch the tape of last year and look how they lost certain games, and they're gonna, okay, well, this guy isn't here and that guy isn't there to do this and that, so let's shore those things up. I just don't see the Lions having a problem, man. I really don't. And that hurts me to say because I don't really like the Lions very much either. They used to be the laughingstock of the league, and now we're pretty much that, the Bears. So, anyway, hopefully that clears up kind of what I want to do during the rest of the offseason here. I know we have a couple of weeks until the draft. It's going to be great. I'm going to go over the draft. Maybe go over Mel Kiper's mock draft. Try and understand what some of these guys do, where they're from, who they are, what teams they're going to go to. And then we'll actually react to the draft. Talk about players that went during the first round, maybe the second round, but I'm really not too stressed, right? Really not stressed. This draft is pretty lame. And then as we get into practice and into preseason, we'll probably wrap up talking about other things having to do with football. I mean, whether it's proposed rules like the tush push getting banned, stuff like that. There's a lot to talk about, even though the season is done, season is off, but we're back. We'll see you guys next time. Be sure to leave a like on the video. Be sure to subscribe because there's a lot to come. More than anything, guys, be sure to go check out W Energy in the description. They're the newest sponsor for the channel. All of the channels.